This is Edge of the Box, a podcast brought to you by WhoScored.com.
Hello, welcome back to the Edge of the Box podcast, a podcast by WhoScored, proudly sponsored by BetVictor. I'm your host, Dan Bardell, here to preview week 1 of the Premier League season. Joined as ever by a man whose name I could never forget, Jonathan Wilson, and that other guy from WhoScored, it's Martin Laurence. How are we, chaps?
I'm very well, thanks. How are you?
Good,
yeah, not bad.
Looking forward to the new season. Starting on a Friday night, which I'm not sure about, but yeah, I guess football's coming back sooner, so that's a good thing. And that first game, Jonathan, is newly promoted Brentford against mid-table Arsenal. And out of all the teams that have been promoted, even though Brentford came up via the playoffs, they seem to be the one that's talked about least in terms of going down.
Yeah, I think there's. I know they came up through the playoffs, and I know they lost in the playoffs the previous year, but I think there's a sense that they have been building towards this for a while, that they've been very close to automatic promotion 2 years, and that possibly this promotion could have come 3 or 4 years ago. It's part of an ongoing project. It's not a sudden blip. I'm not suggesting that either Norwich or Watford are sudden blips, but I guess we're less excited by them because we've seen them in the Premier League before recently, and we sort of have at least some idea of what to expect. Whereas Brentford, they go about things in a different way. I think they have a lot of goodwill from fans across the game because they show what is possible with relatively limited budgets but enlightened leadership. That if you have a good plan, you can put together a club that slowly builds and slowly grows. And I think a lot of people want to see them do quite well this season. They want to see them survive, just so that every other club in the league knows that they're not just sitting there waiting for a billionaire to come along and buy them to give them a chance. So I think that's why people. I mean, and they play an exciting brand of football. They're very much on the front foot. So they're not just another team who've got promoted. They do represent something a bit bigger, and that's why they have goodwill. Possibly that goodwill has led people to slightly overestimate them. But on the other hand, I think those teams who do come up with a clear plan, a clear philosophy, they tend to be the ones who do quite well. So you look at Brighton as a team who's hung around for a while without huge amounts of money, and more recently Leeds, that the side of football isn't dissimilar to Brentford's. And so we've seen that can work in the Premier League.
Yeah, Bournemouth to a point as well. They had a good few years in the Premier League, and you'd say they were similar to Brentford in that they had a very set way of playing.
And even Swansea in the early days. And I know they lost their way, but the early days,
Rodgers, Laudrup. Yeah, that's very true.
Martinez,
yeah. Martin, I mean, as Villa fans, we admire Brentford because simply every time we were in the Championship and we played them, we got beat. But that they will have to adapt slightly. I don't think they'll be able to play the free-flowing football quite that they've played in the Championship. You do have to adapt slightly in the Premier League. Do you expect them to be a bit more defensive focused?
Not sure about defensive focused. I think they've actually got maybe a more solid core than they're given credit for, and maybe more so than maybe the likes of Norwich, who played that attacking football when they came up last time around. They've got quite a strong central midfield, and sort of the front three are then allowed to express themselves a bit more. The central midfield three is actually quite not rigid, but they're all quite solid midfielders. Brentford fans will be keen to see Frank Onyeka, who signed from Midtjylland, who they obviously do a fair amount of business with, and their recruitment paths have crossed, and their sort of staff has crossed and stuff in the past as well. So yeah, like Jonathan says, they've got quite a lot of credit in the bank for the way that they do business, and I think rightly so. And I think maybe unlike Watford and to a lesser extent Norwich, they've got a striker in Ivan Toney, who's obviously just come off the back of an excellent season and scored hatfuls of goals. 30 plus goals, I think it was, in the Championship last season. So there'll be a lot of pressure on him, but they do have Mbermo as well, who's one to watch on the wing. So I think they've got goals in the team, and maybe less so the other two. Obviously, yeah, like I said, Norwich have got Pookie, but I think he's 30 plus now, and the way he sort of tailed off in the Premier League last season will be a slight concern in that regard. And where they don't have Emi Buendia's link up with him, where those two were so sort of telepathic, how they get over that will be a bit of an issue. So I think that's why Brentford are probably sort of seen as the favourites of the three to stay up.
And on to Arsenal, Jonathan. I mean, I guess the big question from Arsenal fans will be, can they survive this season?
Yeah, I mean, it's very difficult even to know what a good season would look like for Arsenal. Their stock has fallen so much. Yeah, there was a time when finishing third or fourth seemed like a bad season for Arsenal.
Yeah.
Now I think they have to have a good season to get even into the Conference League. So there's been a lot of, the tanker needed turning around. That's taken time, and I think this season, if there isn't evidence that tanker is moving away from the course it's set towards despair to a new course marked optimism, then I think questions will be asked of Arteta more seriously than they have been. I think I don't want to say he's had an easy ride, because I think the job he's been doing has been very difficult, but there really needs to be something a bit more tangible this season. Otherwise, people are really going to start to doubt him.
Yeah, I mean, if I was Brentford, to be honest, Martin, first game in the Premier League, Arsenal would be one of the teams I'd fancy myself against, and they'd be a team I'd want to play, to be honest.
Yeah, I think they've still got the name, haven't they? They'll always have the name, so they'll still be seen as a scalp. But I agree, they're of that sort of level of quality now, in that period of transition or whatever you want to call it, that they are beatable for sure. So yeah, I agree. It's a decent fixture for Brentford, and it'll be their first game in their new stadium in a packed house, which you've got to take into account as well. That could have a real impact. So yeah, it is hard to predict Arsenal. The one thing I would say is, I think between the teams that you'd I think even we expected to finish between sort of 6th and 11th, you can probably throw a blanket over most of them in terms of quality, in terms of expectations this season. So it will be tight, I think, for those certainly 6th and 7th. So the last Europa League and the Conference League spot, I think that will be quite hotly contested this season. So they've definitely got a chance of getting back into the Europa League, and that would have to be seen as a success, I think. I'd like to think that even most Arsenal fans would see that as a success, just in the fact that it is progress again. They've obviously gone backwards, and they need to take small steps forwards again.
I mean, I think the thing with Arsenal is that their potential upside is higher than a lot of those teams between 6th and 11th we're talking about. That Thomas Partey came in last season, didn't have a great first season, but we know he's a good player. So if he finds his form, if that was just a question of adaptation, if Aubameyang rediscovers his form, if Smith Rowe kicks on, if Saka kicks on, then suddenly you're talking about something quite exciting. But the problem is, every time it looks like things are beginning to build, one or two of those players that you're relying on suddenly dips in form. So if they do all start clicking together properly, then Arsenal could be. I mean, there's no reason why Arsenal should be worse than Leicester, for instance. I mean, they are worse than Leicester. There's no reason for it. And if Leicester can be within a game of getting in the Champions League, well, sort of logically Arsenal ought to be, but they really don't feel like it at the moment.
No. Give me your score prediction then, Jonathan.
2-1 Arsenal.
2-1 to Arsenal. Martin?
We've gone for 2-2 in our match preview. Who scored?
Yeah, and I've gone for 1-1 myself. I think it'll be a draw. Let's move on then to Manchester United against Leeds. Martin, how are Manchester United going to line up this season? What's going to happen? Are they going to be able to play that more expansive brand of football that the fans want to see? Now they've got Varane. Will Pogba and Fernandes play together through the middle? What's going to happen? I
think that will be the plan in the majority of cases. Obviously, they won't play that way against stronger teams, but obviously Varane won't be available for this first game, so I don't think we'll see it against Leeds, who they will be wary of, despite obviously the 6-2 win in this fixture last season. I think the reverse fixture lets you know that Leeds aren't predictable, and they certainly can cause problems. So yeah, they won't have Varane. So I think maybe it will be a 4-3-3 with Fernandes and Pogba. I think the talk is that it'll be either side of Matic this season, just because
that seems strange.
Theory. Yeah, no, the theory is that he is the best defensive midfielder that they have, and I'd agree with that. So if you're going to play if you're going to play both of them, I would agree personally that I'd be more confident with Matic being the holding midfielder than Fred, and personally than McTominay as well. I think McTominay's actually developed his game to be more of a box-to-box midfielder. I don't think he's a sitting midfielder, whereas Matic is. So I think there is actually quite a lot of talk that Matic could play a more prominent role this season if Fernandes and Pogba do line up in that midfield. Like I said, I don't know if that will happen this weekend because of the absence of Varane, but I think that is certainly the plan for the season. I think also they've got problems in attack looking into this game in particular, don't they? Because Rashford's out, Cavani's out, Martial might not be fully fit, Sancho hasn't trained much with the team yet, so I think that'll be the dilemma for this game. I think there'll be Greenwood will probably be the main man up front early on, and we'll come on to him later in the bet builder. But yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see this lineup in general, not just in midfield, for United against Leeds.
I mean, Jonathan Martin's talking about Matic playing a more prominent role this season. I suggest Leeds wouldn't be ideal opposition for someone like Matic to get around him, the way they play, the way they press. Do you think Leeds can replicate or even improve on what they did last season?
Yeah, I mean, I think they can. The problem with Bielsa sides always is that when it goes really suddenly, because his method demands complete buy-in. Now, at the minute, he appears to have that he's adored by fans and his squad. I don't think we should be too concerned by that possibility yet. Of course, he still hasn't signed his new contract, which I know that's the way he does things, but I must put a slight doubt there. But yeah, I would agree with you that particularly against Leeds, it would be a huge risk to play Pogba and Fernandes together. Particularly Matic, you can imagine his lack of pace being exposed. But yeah, Fernandes, I think towards the end of last season looked knackered. I thought he looked knackered in the Euros.
Burnt out.
Is that 4 week break? I mean, it hasn't been enough for me, so God knows what it must be for a footballer. And Pogba, you always come back with Pogba to the same thing. He's a brilliant footballer, can do brilliant things, but he does have his little lapses of concentration. You saw that, the final minute against Switzerland. And lapses of concentration are the kind of things Leeds punish. So, it sounds ridiculous to say it if a game finished 6-2 to Manchester United last season, but you can envisage Leeds potentially getting something out of this.
Yeah, Manchester United got off to a slow start at Old Trafford last season, didn't they? They lost their first game 3-1. Someone better than me is going to remember who it was that beat them because I can't. Was it Palace? Yeah. I mean, actually, now I've mentioned that, I kind of see reasons when you talk about the team selection as well, why it could go a similar way, Martin, in this one.
Yeah, certainly not a given, this result. Leeds are a good side. They haven't had a very good pre-season, though, I should say. That they've lost 3 or 4 of their friendlies so far, and they were heavily beaten by Ajax as well. So haven't had ideal preparations themselves. But they don't have as many injury problems, that's for sure, coming into this game. So yeah, like you say, I don't think it's a banker. I do still think United are the favourites, and I do think they'll win personally. But yeah, it's conceivably a game that could go against them if those sort of injuries do play a factor. I think we could even see Dan James start this game. He actually had quite a good Euro, so it'll be interesting. And obviously, you've got the narrative there where he was very, very close to signing for Leeds, haven't you? So that'd be quite a nice sub-story to the game, I guess.
Yeah, after I've put the frighteners on Manchester United a bit, I have actually predicted them to win this game 3-1. Martin, what have you gone for?
We have got them to win 2-1, I think. Yeah, 2-1.
And Jonathan?
Yeah, I went 2-1 to Manchester United. I have to say, as I was talking there, I feel like I sort of slightly talked myself out of that.
Yeah,
but no, I still think for all the United's absences, Manchester United's absences, Leeds feel that they're slightly undercooked at this stage as well. But obviously, Calvin Phillips and being involved in the Euros, and they've got to accommodate a new left back with Alioski leaving. So there's uncertainty there as well. So yeah, Manchester United to win it 2-1.
Ignore all of the doubt that we just threw on Manchester United there. We do have United to win as the first sort of leg of the bet builder. That's based on Leeds have never actually won a Premier League game at Old Trafford, so that should be said. Their record in this fixture is abysmal. And United have the best opening day record in Premier League history in terms of both wins and points per game. 18 wins on the opening day in all of their Premier League fixtures. So they usually make a fast start. In terms of goal scorers, I think all of us predicted both teams to score, didn't we, there in our predictions? So we do have a scorer from each side. So we've got, like I mentioned earlier, we've got Greenwood to score because I do think he'll be the main man up front. I think Fernandes will probably be the favourite to score with the bookies for United, but Greenwood to score for us. He had a slow start to last season, so these injuries give him a chance to sort of get back on the horse, so to speak, and he did start to do that certainly from the start of this year. 6 of the 7 league goals he scored last season did come in 2021, and like I said, no Cavani, no Rashford. Martial might not even be fit, so the pressure will be on him to score, but he deals pretty well with pressure for a young lad. And then we've got Bamford to score at the other end. 10 of his 17 Premier League goals last season came away from home. Only Kane and Salah scored more than that away from home. And Bamford scored in Leeds' first 3 league games last season, including an away game at Liverpool. So he scored at Chelsea as well. So he can score in big games. A lot of pressure on him this season to sort of replicate what he did last season. But yeah, we're tipping him to pick up where he sort of picked up last season. And then we've got to finish it off. We've got Harry Maguire to be carded. No player has been booked more times in the Premier League in 2021 than Maguire with 8, which is a massive amount of bookings since the turn of the year. He's actually getting booked a hell of a lot recently. Even for England, he was booked 2 or 3 times at the Euros, I think. So he's becoming a little bit more rash. He was booked against Leeds last time out as well. So that finishes our bet. The original price for that was 35 to 1, and it's been boosted to 40 to 1 by BetVictor. So the link to the sort of all of our tips will be in the description of this sort of YouTube channel or YouTube video. So you can find the bet there. We'll push it on social. But yeah, do gamble responsibly as ever.
All sounds very reasonable. And Mason Greenwood, absolutely don't even bother showing up on Saturday, because after all this talk, you're going in my fantasy football team. So that's finished you off for the weekend for absolute certain. We've mentioned BetVictor, our sponsors, throughout the show. Let's go and hear from their rep now. We've got Sam Boswell to go through the season, outright markets, and much more. Delighted to link up with you again. How are you?
Yeah, really well. Obviously, a fantastic summer of sport with the Olympics and, of course, the Euros. England just falling short, but we're back to the mainstay and the Premier League. I can't wait. It's going to be an absolutely epic season, and some big moves already in the transfer market to really whet the appetite.
Yeah, we're here for Premier League BetVictor talk. So I'm just going to give you the floor. Talk me through everything you've got going on, because I know there's a lot. Yeah, well, I think the first place we obviously should kick off with is the title odds. I'm sure no one's shocked to find that Man City are our 8 to 11 favourites. It's kind of more interesting, I think, to talk about who's going to get closest to them. At the moment, our traders can't decide between Liverpool and Chelsea. 5 to 1, both of them co-second favourites. We are 2 places each way, third of the odds as well. So if you think they're going to get close to City but maybe fall short, could be an interesting angle to play each way. United, obviously big spenders in the window so far. They're a 7 to 1 shot. And then it shows the real dearth of quality behind the power 4, if you like, in that league. You've then got Spurs next in at 33 to 1. But yeah, winner market, City have been popular in ACCAs and that kind of thing. But I must say, out of Liverpool and Chelsea, I'm definitely edging towards Chelsea. Big money signing in Lukaku, which brings us on to our top goal scorer market. Now, we're waiting for confirmation on Lukaku at time of recording, but we've put him in there at 6 to 1 to be top goal scorer. Mo Salah 9 to 2 ahead of him, and Harry Kane at 3 to 1 with 4 places on that. If you want to look for some each way value at the bigger prices, I dare say there'll be a few of you out there that might fancy Danny Ings at a big price to maybe get in the frame. Who knows, an optimistic Villa fan or 2 out there. But like I say, Harry Kane, he's 3 to 1. Should he make the move to City? I'm convinced that will shorten because I just think with the assist power he's going to have around him, it's going to be phenomenal. But definitely a market people have been getting involved in. Loads on the site from your traditional markets, like we've got the handicap winner. We've got Man City there off scratch, as you can imagine, but likes of Villa and Palace getting big head starts can be quite interesting to people. We've got relegation markets as well. All the promoted clubs feature pretty heavily in that. Norwich, the current market leaders at 10 to 11 odds on to be finishing in the bottom 3. Bottom half finish, top 3 finish, forecast, you name it, it's all on there. Top at Christmas as well, bottom at Christmas as well. I think we've really gone quite hard this year, which is fantastic. And the good news for anyone watching that's already got an account, I know quite a lot of the time people want to hear what existing customers are going to get. Well, we've launched the BV Loyalty Club this week, where if you bet £5 bets throughout the week on any sport, as long as they're over 1 to 2 or bigger at the prices, you get a free £5 bet the following week. Loads of terms and conditions for that in the site, as you can imagine, but a good offer to hopefully kick the season off with a bit of a winner for those of you that are backing with BetVictor. All sounds very good. I'm an existing customer, so I'll definitely be utilising that across the weekend at some point. Just before you go, Sam, give me one bet that floats in your boat at the moment. Just one.
Right, okay. I gave it a very brief mention. I think it's a bit of a crackers bet. Some people will think I'm mad, but as a Palace fan, we've got the Patrick Vieira revolution. It's going to end in carnage. It's either going to be, I think, one of the best things that's ever happened to Crystal Palace. They've given him Dougie Freedman's got the checkbook out and certainly signed some great young talent. I think at 15-1 with a handicap start of plus 42, I think if Palace can end up overachieving and ending up in that kind of 12th to sort of 14th spot, I think a handicap of 42 this season should see them very, very close to winning it. 15-1. People might call me mad, but as a Palace fan, we've impressed in pre-season, bought well, and if Patrick can get off to a good start, I wouldn't even be too shocked if we surprise Chelsea.
So Sam, thanks ever so much for speaking to me today, and I look forward to hearing from you throughout the season.
Yeah, can't wait. As ever, it is a marathon, not a sprint. We encourage everyone to gamble responsibly throughout the season. And here's to hopefully a really, really good season. Looking forward to doing the podcast every week.
Let's look at the big one then of the weekend. It's Tottenham against Manchester City. And Jonathan, is it more likely that Harry Kane plays in this game or that he plays for Manchester City this season? If you had to choose one, I mean, I think I know which one I'd pick because you've got, I'll let you do it. You choose.
I think I'd still say play for City this season.
Would you?
I got no idea.
Oh,
really? No, I still think it's a 70-30 in that move happening. I mean, I guess he's quite late to play on Sunday anyway. The problem is this game's really hard to work out what's going on because so many players are doubtful. It's very difficult to work out the probable starting 11s. And if Kane does play, does that tell us anything? I don't know. I remember being at a game I think it was in Graz in Austria, a Liverpool game, and I remember when Liverpool made their third substitution with about 15 minutes to go, and Michael Owen hadn't come off the bench, and every journalist in the press box who had written that Michael Owen was going to Real Madrid was sort of celebrating because this meant he wouldn't be cup tied, which meant he was going, and they were right. But I don't know if Kane playing in this game would mean he wasn't going to City. It might just mean that Tottenham are being stubborn, and Daniel Levy is a very stubborn chairman. So I can't remember what the question was, but I don't have any answers, whatever the question is, if it relates to this game.
I struggle to see him play in this game. Personally, I guess it's a statement, isn't it? If he plays, Tottenham are saying, look, he's not going anywhere. Whereas if he doesn't play, he'll just whip up again the sort of hysteria that he's going to leave. But he's not even trained with the group. Yeah. I think he's having to have a sort of PCR test, which would mean that he can start training tomorrow. So that would seem unlikely to me. And I think they've had a decent pre-season without him. They beat Arsenal obviously in their last game. So I don't see him starting this game. In terms of whether I don't see him starting for sure. I don't see him playing either. In terms of whether he goes to City or not, I'm completely 50-50 now, I think. It's completely up in the air, which is a complete cop-out answer. But I literally couldn't predict it at all.
I guess 9 subs now, he might end up on the bench with the extended substitute rule being continued into this season. Now, Jonathan had to enforce a Grealish ban on some of the Villa stuff that I don't want to talk about anymore. But unfortunately, on a podcast like this, I cannot avoid it. How do you think he'll do? And do you think he'll
he looks lovely in pale blue, doesn't he? You must. It matches his eyes. Beautiful. I don't know how. I think it's a really interesting signing because it potentially adds something that maybe City haven't had. You think back to Guardiola's Barcelona, and they had Messi, who had that sort of slightly anarchic streak, so he could sort of unlock games. He broke Barca out of their patterns. Now, I'm not suggesting Grealish is anywhere near as good as Messi, but I think he could fulfill a similar role. But there's a danger there because Guardiola and anarchy tend not to go together. He wants control, and Grealish may not be the player to give you that. Now, I think that kind of tension can be very productive. I think that those sort of creative tensions can produce very interesting results. But equally, they're a risk. They can go badly wrong. I think 100 million, I guess it was the price they had to pay, but I think it's a lot of money for somebody who's never played in Europe when they're going to turn 26 next month. It is a gamble, it is a risk, but it's an exciting one. And I'm quite, as a neutral, I'm kind of keen to see how it plays out.
Yeah, I'm intrigued to see what happens. I kind of think of him as being a bit like maybe Iniesta, Martin, in the system. You'll have a defensive midfielder, and then it used to be Xavi and Iniesta for Barcelona. It's not going to be De Bruyne and Grealish in front of a sitter, I think.
Possibly. I think this is obviously even more pressure on Grealish in this opening game. I do think he's not forced to start, but De Bruyne's out and Foden's out, and those are the two players that he's sort of tipped to almost clash with in the 11, and they're both out. So he could play in either role. He could play wide, or he could play in the 3. Personally, I think he'll start wide. I think he'll start in his sort of usual formation. I think it would be quite a tough ask to get him to immediately sort of adapt or readapt to playing in midfield. He's done it before, but not for a couple of years, and not in a system like Man City. So I don't know. I personally see him starting wide, but yeah, it's a big opportunity for him to sort of prove his worth, because it was, like Jonathan says, it was a lot of money. But yeah, with De Bruyne and Foden out, it'd be really interesting to see sort of how he starts this season. Personally, I think in terms of his price tag, I'm not sure that I don't really necessarily buy into the fact that he's not played in Europe really having much of an effect. I think he's clearly that good that he'll have absolutely no problem playing in the Champions League. I have no doubt about that. Maybe some do, and that's fair enough. But I don't think.
I think you have to have doubts until he's done it. I mean, yeah, all the potential is there, absolutely, but we just haven't seen him play on anything like a regular basis against a Bayern, a Real Madrid, a PSG.
Yeah, maybe in the sort of certainly in the latter stages. I think in the group.
I mean,
stages,
he'd be fine in the group stages. The level of the group stage is rubbish. So
yeah, but that'll give him the chance to sort of get used to playing European football. I don't see him having any problem at all, personally. I get the point that he hasn't played against the sort of higher level of opposition on a regular basis, but I don't see him having an issue with adapting. But yeah, it's a lot of money. It's what he was worth to Villa, isn't it? That's the case in any sort of transfer fee. It's what they're worth to the selling club, and that's what Villa valued him at. And I think they almost regretted valuing him that low, because even Perslow said in his sort of immediate video that they were hoping that no one would bid that money after they set it as the release clause. So didn't work, but we moved.
Yeah. I think 12 months ago, that clause, they probably thought, no, it's not going to happen. That. And then 12 months later, it looks a little bit low, but yes, that's the way football goes. And I don't think Jack Grealish will worry about the price tag at all. I mean, he didn't know what an encyclopedia was, so I wouldn't expect him to be aware of how much 100 million was in the grand scheme.
Apparently in one of... I've not been keeping up with City's videos of Grealish too much, I must admit. But apparently in one of them, he was doing his medical, and he was on the treadmill, and he was suffering, he was blowing, and the physio or whatever said, "Oh, that'll be the incline," and he was like, "Incline?" He didn't know what an incline was. I just like, I know a lot of Villa fans hate him at the moment, but I just really struggle to hate him for that level of ignorance. That encyclopedia video, I can watch it all day. It's so funny.
But an encyclopedia thing, is that a generation thing? Because I mean, why would somebody of his age? I mean, why would a 25-year-old? I mean, I don't know. I'm 45. I find anybody under 40 quite hard to understand. But I mean, why would anybody now use an encyclopedia? You Google it. I don't know how much Googling Jack Grealish does of Henry VII. But still,
what's an incline?
But still, yeah, I get it's a word that would not be in regular use in the way it was for my generation at school, when you'd literally have to go to the library and take a book off a shelf to look something up, rather than
taking all of my joy out of that short video. I'm not going to lie, Jonathan.
It was a very touching video in the. Both Grealish and Faye Carruthers, who was doing the interview, I thought handled it perfectly. It was a very sort of, you got a sense of warmth from both of them. Yeah.
I'm presuming Jack Grealish didn't have Encarta 97 on CD-ROM, because that's how I know what an encyclopedia was. And Jonathan, we know that I like to come to you for validation, and I've got a thought in my head about someone this season who I think is going to have a really, really good season. So I'm going to come to you to validate it for me, because I'm going to put him in my fantasy football team as well. I think Ferran Torres might start a lot of games for Man City and score a fair few goals this season.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen glimmers of what a good player he can be. I mean, for Spain as well. So yeah, I'd be surprised if he didn't have more of a role this season. I'm a little bit surprised he didn't have more of a role last season, to be honest. I don't know how many games he played in the end. Was it 10 or a dozen, maybe? But yeah, he can clearly score goals. And I guess, especially if they don't get a centre forward, he is going to have to play more, whether that's coming from wide into that central area, or whether it's as a false nine.
Yeah, I mean, I'm desperate for there to be a fantasy football segment in this podcast, Martin, so I'm going to start shooting.
I find fantasy football so boring. I'm sorry.
Oh, come on, Jonathan.
We're not sponsored by them or anything, are we?
No, not yet.
I find it so tedious. I'm sorry. Like,
we won't book
Yeah,
you on
me-
the next on the
Yeah,
fantasy
me
football
too. Me
podcast,
too.
yeah.
Fantasy football's rubbish. If Jonathan doesn't like it, I don't like it. So what a load of nonsense. Fantasy football. Right, Martin, does Ferran Torres make the combined 11? I'm imagining not.
He does not. No, he does not. But there are more Tottenham players than you might expect. 4, in fact. And I think we had this sort of selection last season. I think we did this game last season. In that Hugo Lloris did earn a higher rating than Ederson last season. Explained it at the time, but mainly because he's got way more to do. Ederson kept very, very quiet last season. Obviously does still make very good saves, but they're pretty few and far between, certainly last season based on the defence. So he's always going to struggle to get a strong sort of statistical rating. The back 4 is João Cancelo, who was actually our highest rated right back in all of Europe last season. He was that good. And there's another sort of surprise thrown up at centre back in that it's John Stones, but it's actually Christian Romero ahead of Ruben Diaz, which will get plenty of abuse. I look forward to the abuse on that one. But yeah, Christian Romero was the highest rated centre back in Serie A. Our highest rated centre back, I should say, got 7.14. So I think he could be an excellent signing for Tottenham, just because I think it's been a problem area for them since Vertonghen started to sort of pick up injuries and just naturally decline. That partnership with Alderweireld was obviously really strong, but last few seasons, Davinson Sanchez hasn't really kicked on. Eric Dyer's just not reliable. Joe Rodon's come in and done okay, but looks like he's sort of not going to be getting too many chances this season. I don't know. But yeah, Christian Romero is certainly one to watch. I think he was one of the best players at the Copa America as well, en route to winning that with Messi in Argentina. So yeah, new signing from Atalanta. Could be a good one for fantasy football this season, I think, just keeping on that subject. And then the left back is Zinchenko ahead of Reguilon. There was obviously the option to play Cancelo on the left and Walker on the right, but Zinchenko actually got a slightly better rating than Kyle Walker last season. So we've kept to those sort of natural positions. The midfield 3, and we've done it as a 4-3-3, is Rodri, Holding, Gundogan and Jack Grealish. We have excluded injured players because they're not featuring in this game. So De Bruyne would have been in that midfield 3, but he's out. And that also means that Foden, he would have been instead of Gundogan. And then the front 3 with Foden out. It's Mahrez on the right, so not Ferran Torres. Kane up front, obviously he's the big talking point, and Son on the left. So pretty nice team, I think. Pretty tasty team. I think the main debates will obviously be those first 2 Tottenham players in there, but hey ho, statistics.
Come on then, Jonathan, rip it to shreds. Why not? Ruben Diaz needs to be in there, doesn't it?
Well, it would be for me, yeah. I think comparing across leagues is very, very difficult. Christian Romero may well. I think he's a very good signing. He may well prove to be an excellent signing, but I would not be breaking up the Diaz Stones partnership, and I would absolutely not be picking a Lloris. But Kane and Son, yeah, that seems fine to me. So, for one side, I'm not massively in disagreement, but.
In disagreement. Yeah.
Half in disagreement, yeah.
Likes the formation as well, Martin. A good start from you.
Yeah, I like the 4-3-3. Yeah, that makes sense for once.
Right. Credit. Decent platform to build on.
Credit where it's due. Let's have your score predictions then.
2-1 to City.
2-1 City. We've actually gone for 1-1. Bit of a wild card, a bit of a differential, we'll say, in terms of these predictions. I just think with City's players, they're going to be out. Foden and De Bruyne are both out. And obviously all of those England players, Walker, Stones, Sterling, haven't featured in pre-season at all. They've obviously trained this week, but certainly not ideal preparation for this season. So, yeah, like Jonathan mentioned earlier, it's really hard to sort of put your finger on the possible lineups for this game. So I think it could be a bit of a rogue one from Pep. So, yeah, we're going with a draw.
I've gone for 2-0 to Manchester City. Martin, when you're saying we've gone for it, I feel like you're a little bit past in the book because you told me we were going to be doing some kind of league with our predictions, and then you're making your predictions, but you're saying we.
Well, I'm saying these are WhoScored because we do match previews for every game.
Okay.
I did consider. I'd like to say
that my
this. No, we're going to do a league, Jonathan.
Snuck in, Jonathan.
I just saw the email this morning and sort of hammered out a reply in 3 minutes. I didn't realize I had to think about it.
Well, next week you're going to have to think about it. You're going to get, for what it's worth, you're going to get 1 point for a correct sort of outcome, 3 points for a correct scoreline. So we'll keep track of it over the season.
So is this me versus Jonathan? Are you
and who scored? So it's you two against who scored. Yeah. So we'll be on there.
I'm not sure.
That 6-5 we're putting as a joke. Can we change that to 1-1 for whatever game that was?
Yeah, we'll get rid of that one. Yeah, I'm not sure about you not getting any responsibility there if it goes badly.
I just don't want to conflict with our match with our match previews. I don't want people to be coming at me.
Fine.
Staying on brand.
I mean, it is a Who Scored podcast, not a Dan Bardell podcast. Yeah, I should probably listen to what you say.
Pipe down.
I'll be quiet. Right, let's move on to everyone's favourite section, the regular section for legacy fans. It's the Just a Minute. It's Burnley versus Brighton for Jonathan first. And I'm going to be strict on the minute because I'm a bit worried my laptop battery's not going to hold out and I don't want to fanny around with plugs. So, yeah, I'm saying I'm going to be strict and then I can't find the app on my phone for the stopwatch. There we go. Jonathan, 1 minute for you then of Burnley versus Brighton.
As I said in the general preview show, I think Brighton are going to have a better season this season than they had last season. There's one of the XG models had them finishing 5th, which I think is slightly misleading, but they were better. Their performance was better than results would suggest. Often that was the issue at centre forward. I'm not sure they've solved that yet, and obviously they've lost Ben White. But centre back is an area that they were strong in. David Prepper's gone as well. But I like the sound of Enoch Mwepu coming in. I think he in midfield alongside Yves Bissouma could be very effective. Burnley started last season dreadfully. It feels quite similar to last season in that they haven't really brought many people in. Nathan Collins, Wayne Hennessy, the only two. That does give them more cover at the back. And that bad start last season, they picked up 2 points in the first 7 games. Ben Mee was out for, I think, 6 of their first 10 games. So at least they have cover there. These 2 games would draw, this was a draw last season, 1-1 and 0-0. I think it'll be tight again. So I'm going to go Burnley 1, Brighton 1.
Martin, what's your prediction?
We have gone We've gone for Burnley to win 1-0. For what it's worth, it's one of those.
Why do you hate Brighton? Why do you
want to think I was going to say, it's one of those where maybe I wouldn't agree with who scored, but we've gone for 1-0 to Burnley.
I've gone 1-0 as well, so yeah. A bit of anti-Brighton agenda from me at the moment. Not purposely. I'm not doing it on purpose.
Going around leaving poisoned chips out for seagulls. It's disgusting.
Right, Martin, your turn. Everton versus Southampton.
So it's Rafa Benitez's first game in charge of the blue half of Merseyside. He'll be hoping that last season's star man Dominic Calvert-Lewin is available, having been suffering from an ankle knock. His fitness will be particularly important given Richarlison is likely to play no part following his gold medal success with Brazil at the Olympics, though the forward has actually opted against taking a break, so he could be in contention. With Danny Ings having left the club, we could see a debut for either of Saints' new strikers, Adam Armstrong or Chelsea loanee Armando Broja, though both may have to make do with a place on the bench. Yannick Vestergaard is seemingly set for Leicester, and captain James Ward-Prowse is the subject of interest from both Villa and Tottenham. So Ralph Hasenhüttl is up against it already, with the midfielder a doubt for this game as well, having recently recovered from a knee injury. Both teams approach the game off the back of defeats in their final pre-season friendly, and following their transfer business this summer, there isn't much optimism that either can improve on last season. Games between the two are traditionally very tight, with just one of the last 8 separated by more than a single goal, and that trend is unlikely to change this weekend. So I've gone for 1-0.
No,
We've gone for 1-0. We've gone for 1-0.
Jonathan?
1-0 Everton, sorry.
I've gone 2-0 Everton.
I have gone for 1-1. Not sure why I did that, but I have. Chelsea v Palace, Jonathan.
Chelsea finished 19 points behind City last season, but they did beat them 3 times, and I think they'll be a lot closer, maybe even be ahead of City this season. The problem is converting possession and domination into goals. Lukaku will give them that, but he's not going to be there just yet. I think there is a chance this season that Tuchel may switch to a back 4, but he kept the back 3 in the Super Cup, where again you saw, I think, Chelsea being slightly sterile, so that would be a concern. Palace, I know we have a difference of opinion on Palace. I sort of agree with you that the work they've done this summer has been good and been impressive. I just think they've done too much too quickly, and that can cause chaos. And they're also slightly reliant on Benteke being rejuvenated, which I wouldn't necessarily put too much faith in. Elise and Eze are both injured, which obviously affects their attacking options. Chelsea won both games last season very comfortably, 4-0 and 4-1. And I think it'll be similarly comfortable this time. So I'm going to go Chelsea to win 3-0.
I've gone for Chelsea to win 1-0. Martin, what have WhoScored done?
2-1 Chelsea. So yeah, sort of sticking to my prediction that sort of Palace will be a dark horse this season. I think they'll run them close, personally.
Yeah, I think it'll be a lot tighter than people realise. The big one, Martin, Watford versus Aston Villa at Vicarage Road.
It's Watford's first game back in the top flight after a short break, and they're under yet another new manager this time around in Xisco, with the 40-year-old having a superb impact following his appointment last December. The Spaniard could hand debuts to any one of Watford's 9 new signings this summer, at least 3 of which will be expected to start, though Ismail Assar remains the star man. Villa have been busy too this summer and begin their post-Grealish era looking set to line up in a new formation. Ollie Watkins should be fit, having suffered a bruised knee in Villa's last friendly, to partner new man Danny Ings up front, though Emi Buendia is a doubt and Leon Bailey is yet to train with the squad following a period of isolation. Elsewhere, there could be a start for Ashley Young, back where it all began at Watford, and youngster Jaden Philogene-Badace has forced his way into contention following a strong pre-season. Villa will be praying that Birmingham City fan Troy Deeney plays no part, having scored in all 4 Premier League fixtures between these sides, scoring 6 times in the process, with the visitors conceding 3 en route to defeat on each of their last 2 visits to Vicarage Road. They'll be favourites this time, but may take time to find their feet after you-know-who's departure. So I've actually, and this was me actually, I've actually gone quite pessimistic, gone 1-1.
I've gone for Villa to win 2-1. Jonathan?
Villa to win 1-0.
Excellent work, Jonathan. Love it.
With pleasure.
Leicester against Wolves, Jonathan.
I think the real key for Leicester this summer was holding on to their stars. And so far, they have kept hold of Ndidi and Tielemans and Maddison. And they've also brought in Patson Daka, who I think, A, is a very exciting prospect, but B, is very necessary because Jamie Vardy is finally, I think, beginning to show signs of age. It's less important if Iheanacho keeps scoring goals. But he obviously will be gone at the Cup of Nations in January and February. We saw he's in form with his, I mean, can you say he's in form when he scores a penalty? But he looked bright against City in the Community Shield. Leicester don't actually have a great home record for a team who's finished 5th in each of the last 2 seasons. They've only won 20 of their 38 home games in that time. So that may be a concern against a team that traditionally has been very good on the counter. Not sure whether that'll be true of Wolves this season. I think there's a lot of uncertainty there under Bruno Lage, if that's even how you say it, which I'm not convinced of. Lots of injury on both sides. Evans, Castagna, Justin Fofana, Mendy all injured. Bolly, Otto, Neto, Pedence and Mosquera all out. 0-0 at Molineux last season, 1-0 at the King Power. I'm going to go 2-0 for Leicester this time out.
I'm going to go 2-1 to Leicester. I really don't know what to expect from Wolves at all. WhoScored, Martin?
Yeah, 2-0. Leicester, should say. 2-0 Leicester.
Good stuff. And you've now got the pleasure of talking about Billy Gilmore's Norwich.
He gets a mention, don't worry.
Yeah, every week, I'm never going to forget. He'll get a mention every single week. Mark my words.
In a repeat of their first game back in the Premier League 2 years ago, Norwich faced Liverpool, though this time at Carrow Road. That clash ended 4-1, but Norwich came out of it with a fair amount of credit for their adventurous approach. Making sure it lasts this time around will be more difficult following the departure of Emi Buendia, though some shrewd signings have been made in the form of Billy Gilmore and Milo Rashica. It's Liverpool's 3rd season opener in succession against the newly promoted side, with the previous 2 yielding 12 goals. With Virgil van Dijk and Joe Gomez both back from injury, they'll be confident of another strong start, though Andrew Robertson is out of this game, with Kostas Tsimikas set for a rare start. The main selection dilemmas come at either end, and whether Ibrahima Konate comes straight in or it's Joel Matip's spot to lose. Up front, the pressure is firmly on both Roberto Firmino and Sadio Mane to improve after underwhelming seasons, with a big season predicted for Diogo Jota. Liverpool have scored at least 3 goals in each of their 5 opening Premier League fixtures under Jurgen Klopp. It's hard to see that past that run continuing here. 3-1 Liverpool.
Yeah, I think I've got 3-1 Liverpool as well. Jonathan?
I've gone 3-0 with a Luis Suarez hat-trick.
Oh, what great days. Got some great goals in that game. I remember that game very well.
Didn't he score hat-trick against Norwich every time he played them?
Yeah, a lot. I think it was more than one every time as well, yeah. Yeah, can we get Billy Gilmore on the podcast, please, Martin?
I'll do my best. Actually, he wouldn't be able to come on. He wouldn't be able to come on. He's not old enough. Genuinely not old enough to come on a bet. You have to be 25 to be on any sort of betting pot. You're 25, aren't you, Dan? I should have asked.
Only just, yeah. Oh, that's
and John, I know. John, I only didn't ask Jonathan because he said his age earlier. Otherwise, I would have asked.
Yeah,
obviously.
Jonathan's been around.
This is not a 25-year-old's face. Even when I was 25, I didn't have a 25-year-old's face.
I'm still waiting for my 25-year-old's face, to be honest.
Oh yeah, well, I'm sort of just thinking back to when you had a shave. Absolutely ridiculous scenes in
Not
the
happening again.
Euros.
It's not happening again.
It should never happen again. Jonathan, then last game in the just a minute section. I'm gonna say Graham Jones is Newcastle, because anytime Newcastle do anything good, Graham Jones seems to get the credit for it. It's Newcastle against West Ham.
Well, there's a reason why Graham Jones is talked about all the time, which is because he's the only new figure to have turned up at Newcastle in about 50 years. Yeah, yet again they haven't made any signings yet. Although it does seem likely they will sign Joe Willock. That I think a fee's been agreed, but they're still talking about personal terms. And Newcastle actually have problems going at this game. But Martin Dubravka's out, Carl Darlow's also a doubt. So who knows who may end up playing in goal. Paul Dummett's also out, and also they've lost options with Atsu and Carroll both leaving. Now I know that they've both become peripheral presences, but Carroll, you also thought gave them something. Atsu, I thought at his best as a good creative player. West Ham obviously looking to build on an excellent season last season. They've got Areola in on loan, which gives them more options in goal. And they've made the Dawson move permanent, but they haven't done a huge amount of business. No Lingard, and they lost on the opening day to Newcastle last season 2-0, albeit at the London Stadium, not at St James's, but they did also lose 3-2 at St James's. So not knowing what else to say, I'll say 1-1.
Go for 1-0 West Ham. For what it's worth, I think it will be Freddie Woodman in goal for Newcastle, who obviously was at Swansea last season, kept the most clean sheets.
Freddie Woodman is sort of, every time there's been a sort of how will England line up at the 2030 World Cup? That's the only place I know him from. He's the bloke who we'll talk about in 2030. We'll be like, where is Freddie Woodman now?
Came good last season, Jonathan.
Follow the Paul Konchesky route to ignominy.
Yeah, very, very good goalkeeper, Freddie Woodman, highly rated. I'd be interested to see him, because you know what, Brewsters, if you have a good first game of the season, you probably play the rest of the season and then lose your place for the last 8. Carl Darlow did that last season.
Yeah, exactly. It is interesting because it happened to Carl Darlow last season, didn't it? He was sort of an enforced change, so it's happened again. So it'll be interesting to see if Woodman does play well, whether he sort of can sort of keep a hold of that shirt for a sustained period.
I mean, Dubravka had that shocker against Spain, didn't he? So
one of the worst own goals I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Who's Newcastle's goalkeeping coach? What does he do to him?
I don't know.
He's just always got goalkeepers injured. It's absolutely ridiculous. No other team in the world seems to have the trouble with injuries to goalkeepers that Newcastle have. But yeah, that does us for the just a minute section, and we'll catch up next week with our predictions that we've been making throughout the show and see how the league table lies after one game. Absolutely meaningless, isn't it? Checking after that, but I'll be interested to see. I mean, Jonathan's yawning just
sorry
about it. So yeah, we'll see what happens with that next week. Martin, you're going to finish us off, aren't you, with some bets?
Well, with a bet, a little bit of fun. Usually we would do a nap. Yeah, well, it's definitely not a nap. I should say this is definitely not a nap. Usually we would do a treble for Sunday's games, but there's only 2 games, and I didn't want to make Dan feel left out like he was last time when we did a double. So we've avoided that this week. Next week we'll have a treble, so be prepared to get a tip ready for one of Sunday's games next week. So usually we'd have a treble, and usually we'd have a nap as well. But the nap this week actually clashed with the bet builder in that we're basically looking at all of our score predictions and where they marry up. So the bet that married up would have been Manchester United to win and both teams to score. We all said that, but that clashes with the bet builder. So I've gone for something a little bit different, a little bit fun. Such fun. We've all said that Burnley will score 1 goal. We've all said that Leicester will score 2 goals. And we've all said that Liverpool will score 3 goals. So, yeah, a bit of a niche bet on a Saturday. We're going for 1+ goals for Burnley, 2+ goals for Leicester, and 3+ goals for Liverpool. So, yeah, hopefully we'll get the odds boosted for that, and we'll put that out on social, and we'll have it in the link that I mentioned below in the description. But, yeah, should be a juicy price, I think, for that one.
Yeah, I'd like a WhatsApp message, please, when that goes live.
I will send you a WhatsApp.
I think that's a good one. Jonathan's now woken up from his nap, and that's does us for this week on the show. Don't forget, we did do a prediction show earlier on in the week, looking at the whole Premier League season in general. Some outrageous shouts, some of us on completely different pages from the other one with some of the predictions. So again, go and have a look at that. It'll be really, really interesting to look at that at the end of the season. If you're not already subscribed to the Edge of the Box podcast on Who Scored with your post notifications on, then if you could do that, it'd be great to get the subscriber numbers up going into the new season, and there will be some offers for subscribers going through the season as well, I'm sure. Thanks ever so much to the guys for joining me. It's been a good laugh as usual. We'll be back next week to preview week 2's action. Have a great weekend. Football is back.